Get the game started. Okay, thoughts, questions, concerns, cognitions, anything you'd like to share before we pull up the PowerPoint? All right.
Start.
Go here. Hit this. And we got this. Okay. Part of this is from a class we did a little while ago, only a small portion, but there is something else that I wanted to share based on something I was blessed to see with regards to the relationship between the study tech and the Holy Quran. We've been given what's called the 3 barriers of learning. But when you look at what these 3 barriers of learning are, these 3 barriers are actually something that we were actually given in the teachings many, many years ago.
Mhm.
So it's really not anything new. It's just that it was worded different with regards to how it's presented in the Church of Scientology. And I'll try to see if I can give a quick example. The 3, who knows the 3 barriers off the top of the head? Does anyone know the 3 barriers? Anyone?
Lack of mass,
Mm-hmm.
either skip gradient or too steep of gradient,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't remember the third one.
The third one is the most important. That's the one that
Misunderstood word.
misunderstood word.
There you
That's the
go.
one that out of all of the barriers, that is the key one right there. But let's real quick, we'll look at how this is actually in our teachings already. We just didn't pick up on it. When you talk about lack of mass, we are going to speak specifically about that one today. But when you look at closing the gap on page 19, we're taught that Master Fard Muhammad used to teach the early believers using pictures, correct? Okay, so there's the mass. Too steep a gradient. Well, the Most High Elijah Muhammad said that you don't give a baby meat, you got to give him milk, correct? And that would be the same concept as a too steep of a gradient, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then the misunderstood word, well, that's right in our 13 rules of instruction. It said that there's more to be understood in the word, correct? And speaking past, present, and future tense being perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have those 3 barriers in our wisdom already. There's something more specific I wanted to touch on. Past couple of days, I'm trying to get my mind prepped to get back into the student hat course that I was able to start, but unfortunately, because of the COVID, I didn't get a chance to finish it. So now that everything has kind of opened back up again, I want to go back and complete that. But as I'm going through the study, whatever jewels that I'm blessed to find, I want to share with the believers. Because now is going to be a perfect time not only to get back into our study of the tech, but we want to get deeply involved in our study of self-improvement, supreme wisdom, problem book. And if there's some tools we can utilize to facilitate our study of what we already have, then it'll make things easier for us. And by using this tech, what I have learned is converting the information from short-term to long-term memory is much easier. The methodology that they use in the Church of Scientology with regards to study tech is scientifically proven. I use it currently in everything that I do. And I have benefited from the study tech tremendously. And the goal is to share it with the believers so that we can all grow up out of where we are now. And whatever subject we desire to study, to learn, to make our progress, to manifest our purpose, I want to give this to the believers so that we can all benefit from it. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
The minister says that circle of the gods is to be broken so that we all grow up into that circle, correct?
Mhm. Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
for us to
sir.
become those scientists, it's not going to be an abracadabra mystery god type of someone waves a wand and now we have, white and golden robes and now all of a sudden we can recite all the history for 100,000 years, Sister Sheila. To become God is going to take some work on our part. Okay.
Sure.
So for today, the learning objectives. We're gonna look at the concept of a barrier and understand what a barrier is with regards to barriers to study and also barriers to understanding. Okay. We're gonna just touch on briefly what the study tech is. We're gonna touch briefly on the misunderstood word. But the main thing we want to show is the study tech already in the Holy Quran? Okay. And the one thing I was thinking about as this was being put together, many people they criticize the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan because of going to the org using a technology that was presented by a Caucasian. But then I realized that, most of the people that make the criticism, when they study and they use a dictionary, they use sometimes what's called Merriam-Webster, correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, both of those people were Caucasian, right?
Right. Right.
Okay. And like the minister said, sometimes, when we go to college, sometimes our professors are Caucasian, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the universities that we go to were founded by Caucasians, yes?
Correct.
Yes.
So, there's individuals that criticize the minister have no problem with Caucasian people as long as it benefits them. But they want to point the finger at the minister because he has directed us to a tool that, in his words, and I'm paraphrasing, that can make us better and make us more intelligent in what we claim that we already have. Does that make sense?
Makes
Yes.
sense.
Okay. So we're going to show the relationship in the Holy Quran between the study tech, but the specific concept I wanted to touch on. I wanted to go into the science of what's called the clay table demonstrations, and this is what you find in the student hat course. I'm gonna just share, not on a superficial level, because the study tech is real complicated and I haven't even completed all of it yet. So I'm not going to speak on the parts that I haven't gone into. However, a little bit that I have learned of the study tech has been incredible. And the most incredible part is it's already in our Holy Quran. We already have it. So I want to draw the parallels between what is taught by L. Ron Hubbard and what is actually presented to us in our Supreme Wisdom, our problem book, and our Holy Quran. And I see we have a new face, Sister Peggy. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. I was invited
By whom?
by Sister Anya.
Well, Sister Anya, I gotta start giving you a stipend. Praise be to Allah. Okay, let me say this then. Sister Peggy, you can stop me at any time and ask any questions that you like. I have no problem stopping.
Oh, thank you, sir. But
This is why I use
Yes, sir.
PowerPoints. I use
Yes, sir.
PowerPoint kind of like to keep myself focused because I have a tendency to fly off on tangents. So this kind of keeps me grounded. But the question that you have may be the solution to someone else's problem. So feel free to ask any questions you like with regards to the teachings, the tech of Dianetics, whatever we're covering, whatever question you have, please offer your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Very welcome. Let me recognize Sister Denise. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Denise.
Alaikum salam. How are you?
I'm fine, and yourself?
I'm fine by Allah's grace and mercy.
Okay. And then we have Brother Wahid. Brother Wahid, assalamu alaikum, sir. Although something I forgot to put in PowerPoint, but I'll add it later. And I think that's everyone. All right. So let us get into it. Okay, barriers to learning. What is a barrier? In the words of L. Ron Hubbard, if I'm not mistaken, this is coming from the Dianetic Technical Dictionary. It's an inhibiting idea, space, energy, mass, or time. A consideration or idea that limits other considerations or ideas, something beyond which an individual cannot communicate. Now let's look at this for a quick minute. How many of us have started the study of any subject and then discontinued that study? Has anyone ever experienced that?
Yes,
Me.
sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Do we remember what it was that caused us to stop our study?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The one thing they teach, one thing that L. Ron Hubbard teaches, he talks about what's called cycles of action and cycles of failure. Okay. And a cycle of action is the very brief explanation of that. A cycle of action is when we start something, we make changes, and then we stop or we complete it. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Everything that we do is a cycle of action. Everything. Okay. When we get up in the morning, when we get ready to make salat, we get out of the bed, we start. The change is we make wudu or ablution, and then the stop is we end up on the prayer rug, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So everything is a cycle of action. A cycle of failure is when we start a cycle of action and somewhere in that cycle we lose control, meaning something else takes place and we don't complete that cycle. For example, we sit on the edge of the bed in the morning. That's the start. We think about making our salat, but we think about how nice those blankets felt, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then we lay back down and say, well, let me just get 5 more minutes and then I'll get up and make salat. Next thing you know, 5 minutes turns into, the sun is already risen, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be considered a cycle of failure. And the one thing they teach is that the more cycles of failure we have, the more incomplete cycles of action we have, the more aberrated we become. Okay, now I'm gonna give another example. Some of us, our work schedules are crazy. Okay, so as a result of a crazy work schedule, we might look at the bedroom might be messy, the kitchen might be messy. And then as soon as we come into a messy environment, we look at it, we take a deep breath, we go, and then what happens is we say, okay, I got to get this stuff cleaned up. And then we wind up on the couch watching TV, Netflix for the next 3 hours. Does that happen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That heavy sigh or deep breath is called misemotion. And it's a sign of frustration because what? The kitchen, the bedroom, the living room, when it's all kind of messy, those are all cycles of action that are incomplete. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
When we take the time to clean the kitchen, clean the bedroom, do whatever we got to do, don't we have a sigh of relief as everything comes back into order?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That is because we have completed those cycles of action. Sister Shayla.
Sir, I have, how do I fix, here is a cycle of act. Here is a two that I can remember.
Okay.
The cycle of action was was completing dinner during Ramadan. And two occasions, I fell asleep with dessert in front of me. And I woke up at 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the morning.
Mhm.
And I look at my dessert, I look at me, I look at everything, and I say, I missed my prayer. And I went back to sleep. I didn't complete. The next day I made up for my prayer, but my point is that was not a cycle that I intended to not complete. What happened there to me? Well, like maybe I ate too much.
You fell asleep with dessert still in front of you?
I never got to dessert. I just fell asleep. This Ramadan, I was very tired for some reason. I was just tired at night.
And
I
that
didn't wake up at
understand.
3 o'clock in the morning. So I was like, oh,
Oh, so you missed your Maghrib is what you're saying, and your
Yes.
Easter.
yes,
It happens.
it did happen.
It happens, it happens. Okay, so here's possibly how to solve that for the future. Do you have an app on your phone that goes off to signal you when it's time to make the 5 salats?
I do. But when I'm home, I don't have a relationship. I don't have a love relationship with my phone. I put my phone away and then I get engaged in my own life. And I don't have a relationship with the phone too much.
Okay.
And this is for everyone on this call. If you text me, you need to call me and tell me that you text me, because sometimes I don't know that you text me. It's not that I don't want to be in communication. I feel that the phone is an invasion of me.
Mhm.
And I need a separation from the world and that phone in me. And so I kind of safeguard myself by putting it away. I don't shut it off, but I put it in places that I don't hear it, because it's very disruptive
Okay.
in my life.
Okay. So then let me ask you this. Have you ever thought about, because I know they sell these online, you could probably get it through Amazon. It is it's like a digital clock, but it's part of the clock is designed specifically to sound, that you can program it to sound off at the different times of Salat.
Yep, they got it.
Okay.
That
I'll
might
tell
be
you
one way-
offline why I can't do that,
Okay. Okay.
because I could disturb everybody else.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it's not a point of harmony.
Okay. Let's see. All right.
And I'm not being difficult. I'm just being honest. Like,
No, that's fine. That's fine. I can understand it because, you want to be able to do it in such a way that you don't want to disturb someone else's peace.
Right.
And that's understandable. That's understandable. Let's see. Okay, you said that's one. You said there was 2 things. That was one. What's the other?
No, this is being recorded. I'll tell you guys before you record next time.
Okay. 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 All right. So with regards to barriers, there are certain things that each one of us has a desire to do. Okay, there's certain goals that we have. And our biggest enemy is ourself
Oh.
and the doubt that we have in our own abilities to complete the task. Does that make sense with anyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Allah says in the Holy Quran that Allah does not change the condition of a people until they do what?
They
Change-
changed themselves.
They change it themselves. Otherwise, we're waiting for a mystery God to make some changes. Some of us think that the mothership is going to land outside our house and the Savior himself is going to walk up to us to assist us in us accomplishing our goal. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't make sense now. It used to.
Okay. However, I do believe that the Savior gives us the ideas that if we put forth the effort to manifest the ideas, those ideas will bring about a solution to whatever it is that we're looking to solve. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yes.
Okay. That I do believe.
Yes.
So sometimes the Savior is not going to appear, like in the movies, appear surrounded by an aura of light. But just by us making our salah, how many of us have ever experienced receiving a great idea while we're either meditating or making prayer? Has that ever happened?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yes.
Okay. Where did that idea come from? Since we
Brother
didn't.
Lukman,
Yes, ma'am.
I do prayer. I don't want to take up all the time, but I do prayer. I have a prayer group that I do three times a week.
Mhm.
And the other morning, as I was coming up off of the prayer rug, is like this idea came and it just didn't make no sense. And I said, oh my God, I cannot interrupt prayer. But as the prayer was finished, I said, change your route. Change your route. That didn't make no sense. And she said, yes, ma'am. Now, she had to rush off the prayer. And later on, I got a call. The sister said, remember when you told me this morning to change my route to work? I never said to work. She said, Sister Shayla, I didn't remember. And when I remember, I just got out the line to get off that exit to change, and an accident happened right then. So she said, if I didn't get out the line, I would have been dead. I wouldn't be calling you. So thank you.
Ooh.
I was
Wow.
like, whoa, it scared me because at the time when I said, change her route. How am I going to explain this? I said, you got to change your route, but I didn't know why. And that was the why. So I say that for when those thoughts come to you, follow them through. Because what you're saying is absolutely 100% correct. That's how it happens.
Here's the example that I use with regards to prayer and ideas. All of us have either a cell phone or a computer. Does that make sense? Because otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, have you ever noticed that in order for your phone or computer to receive a software upgrade or a systems upgrade, the phone or computer has to shut off so that the system can update? Would not prayer, because when you look at how the Most High Elijah Muhammad describes prayer, message to the black man, he says, you shut your eyes so that you're no longer connected to observing the things that are taking place in the outside world, correct?
Okay. Yes, sir.
So would not making salat 5 times a day be equivalent to receiving 5 system updates in one day? So it's kind of like the same concept. 99% of the ideas, and I'm just sharing this not from a standpoint of making myself as anything, it's just sharing where the ideas come from and bearing witness to the source. Many of the ideas for the Zoom meetings come during Salat. I'll say 99% of them. The other 1% comes when I just sit still long enough to just shut out the rest of the world. When I stop playing my video games and I stop playing chess, because those are my addictions. You know, don't judge me. You know, playing chess and playing video games, that's my means of dealing with reality. But it's those quiet moments when I shut the world out. It might come just as a thought. It might come as in the form of a question or a statement. And as soon as I get off the prayer rug, I purposely keep a pen and paper handy, and I'll write down that idea before I lose it. And then I go and study that idea, and those ideas become these PowerPoints. Allah says in the Holy Quran that he teaches man by the pen what man knew not, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but he does that for all of us. If we would but listen, we receive system updates every time we sit still, but this is why this world is designed to keep us constantly in motion with cell phones and sports and play and all those things, so that we don't take the time to sit still in silence. Does that make sense? Okay, there is a video on YouTube by Mother Tanetta Muhammad, and I can't remember the exact title. I'm gonna try to pull it up before we go, but I think it's called The Significance of Silence. But please remind me towards the end to pull it up so we can have what we call the stable datum or the actual facts on that. It's an 18 or 19 minute long video, and Mother Tanetta Muhammad is teaching why silence is so important. Okay. Let's see, who do we have that just came on? We have a Sister Melanie. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Melanie.
Sir.
How are you?
By Allah's grace and mercy, I'm well this morning.
Let me guess, did Sister Anya invite you?
No, Sister
Oh.
Shayla.
Who invited you?
Sister Shayla.
Sister Shayla. Okay, all right.
Yes.
All right. Might have a little righteous competition going on here. And Sister Rashida. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Rashida.
Wa alaikum salam, Brother Lukman. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, pleasure is all of ours. And we have a Sister Nyambi. Did I pronounce that correct? Assalamu alaikum. Let's see. Who else? Miss Bernice. How are you, Miss Bernice? You can unmute. Who invited Miss Bernice?
Guilty.
Praise be to Allah.
And Niam, when you said Niambi, I believe it's Niambe.
Nyambe. Okay, I see an I there, but that's fine. Nyambe. Okay.
The I has a short E sound. It's African.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Okay. So it's like the French accent aigu.
No, I don't think so. It's closer to Arabic.
It's just that it's that A sound.
Yeah, well, actually, it's short, Niambe. But
Nyambe.
most people, right? But most people say Bay, but it's Niambe.
Nyambe. Okay, got it.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. And we have Sister Kenya with us. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Kenya.
Wa alaikum salam.
All right. Let's keep it moving. Now, So barriers are anything which prevents egress or ingress, which it means keeps one from getting out or into. And this includes not only solid barriers and interpositions, such as walls and screens or fast-moving particles, but also distance and time. So in the language of the tech, basically a barrier is anything that won't allow us to get into the subject of study, or to get into the subject of study, but we can't pull out any understanding. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so hopefully by the end of this short session, we will have a better understanding of how to study. Had I known we would have had so many new individuals to the group, I probably would have covered the three areas, all three barriers. But God willing, maybe we'll do a part 2 next week, and we'll get back into, and I'll discuss all three barriers so we can have all three. Now, if somebody could, please type into the chat Scientology.org, because you can take the study tech course online for free, and it teaches you how to do what's called word clearing. That is a free course. I highly recommend it. If you have not taken that course, it would behoove you to take that course. Okay. So a barrier is any kind of limiting idea, whether emotional or physical. Okay. Again, our biggest obstacle is who?
So.
Biggest obstacle is ourselves.
Self.
Okay. And the way that the minister explained it one time, he explained it using Surah 29. And I'm paraphrasing. He says, when you look at Surah 29, it says, do men think they'll be left alone on saying they believe and will not be tried? Nay, many have been tried before, that Allah may know your heart. Correct? We've heard that before.
Yes, sir.
And then he posed the question, if Allah is the all-knowing, then why would he have to put us through trials in order to know whether or not we know? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And he said that Allah already knows, but the Allah in us does not.
Mhm.
Okay, so we have to go through trials, because sometimes we think something with regards to ourselves, and it might be false. So reality has to come into our life to allow us to realize that we're not what we thought we were. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And we have to go through these trials so that sometimes it's a lesson in humility, but if we have the right spirit, Allah says in the Holy Quran, you know those that are, and I'm paraphrasing, those that are on the right course because they walk the earth in humility. If we can be humble and recognize that we don't know, that's how we learn our greatest lessons. So these are the trials purified. So we're going to start with this quote from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and this comes from the foundation of everything that I do with regards to teaching stems from 3 specific points that the minister has spoken of. 2 specific points deal with mathematics, which I won't go into right now, but between pages 48 and page 51 of A Torchlight for America, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gives 2 important points with regards to education. Number 1, he says, we have to place Allah at the center of our education. And number 2, when we study a subject, we have to study it from the aspect of studying ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So the minister says here, a while ago I coined the phrase, he who gives the diameter of your knowledge prescribes the circumference of your activity. If you gain a limited knowledge, then you restrict the possibilities of what you can and will achieve. The capacity of man's brain is infinite. Therefore, the greater one's knowledge grows, the greater becomes one's sphere of activity until it encompasses and reflects mastery of self and mastery of the universe. Now, a key point here is this. and let me ask this question first, before I address that. How many of us that are here currently have not completed the Dianetics course, meaning they've started it but have not completed it, or they have never started the Dianetics? Is there anyone in the group that has not completed the Dianetics book 1?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So so on our meetings on Sunday specifically, the goal is to assist the believers in completing that cycle of action that the minister has given us with regards to learning the tech. The addition of what the believers will have is that as we go through, if you're on the extension course, we will go through each lesson with also its relationship to the Supreme Wisdom, the Problem Book, and the Holy Quran. Because the minister wanted us to get the tech, but bring it back in the language that we know, correct?
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
So if you have not completed it, if you need assistance of getting back on course with your extension course, if you don't mind placing your name, your email, and your phone number in the chat, I will forward your phone number to a member of the org that I've been working with specifically for about the past 11 or 12 years. And I will make it a point to make sure they get in contact with you so they can assist in getting the extension course to you. And we will do everything we can to help you complete the course and get your gold seal. Now, why is that important? This is just a sidebar for a moment, but why is that important? What took place with the believers with regards to the departure of the Most High Elijah Muhammad in 74, 75? What took place back then with the believers?
Some of them fell apart.
They fell apart. They were found in mental institutions, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. Is there a possibility that that could take place again with the departure of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
It could.
Okay. The minister has taught us in the Divine Destruction of America, Can She Avert It, that grief was going to be one of the tools that is going to use during the chastisement. Allah was going to use grief. Do we remember him saying that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if we don't remember it, that's fine. But go back and watch that lecture. Grief is going to be a tool that Allah is going to use during the chastisement. However, the minister has given us a tool that will allow us to remove grief. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
The past couple of years, how many of us have gone through some emotionally trying and draining situations that if we had not had the tech, we probably wouldn't be on this call right now? Can anyone
Absolutely.
bear witness to that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So would that mean that we were in the furnace of affliction, but one like the Son of Man was in the oven with us, keeping it cool?
Correct.
Okay. Now, for those that don't know, my career is I've been, for the past 18 years now, working for the fire department. And I can tell you there's a difference between being in a room on fire with equipment and without equipment. The hottest room I've ever been in was 1,178 degrees. That was when we're at the academy. We had to sit in a room. We had to withstand the temperature. We had to sit right there across from the fire. We had to watch the fire grow. And whatever fear we had to overcome that fear and remain in that room in that heat with that fire. That's the same concept when we deal with auditing. We are looking at the fire coming from an individual. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
We have been given the tools to withstand the fire that is not coming, the fire that is present in the form of emotional aberration, restimulation.
Mhm.
Look around us. Our environments are on fire right now emotionally.
Yes, definitely.
We can bear witness that we have friends and family that are going through emotionally trying times. And we see the fire that they're going through, and there's absolutely nothing that we can do because we have tried to give them the information and they have chosen not to accept it. So they have to endure that fire as long as Allah sees fit. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, going back to this, where it says the capacity of man's brain is infinite. How many of us remember L. Ron Hubbard talking about attention units?
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
attention units. And I think there's different places in both the Dianetics and Science of Survival where he talks about various levels of attention units, certain amounts of attention units.
Yes.
Based on what the minister has given us here in this quote, how many attention units do you and I have?
Yeah.
Anyone can answer that? How many attention units do we have?
Brother Mughal, can you give the definition of that?
Atten-
Like
okay.
person.
Attention units can be seen as this. Attention units are like, you know how blood flows through the body and carries oxygen to the different parts of the body?
Yes.
It carries light, life, and power. Attention units is like the flow of our thinking, our ability to focus, to gain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, to comprehend certain subjects. In order to understand mathematics, we have to have a certain amount of attention units. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Have any of us tried to study something and then we lost our attention and then we discontinued our study?
Yes.
Okay. We didn't have enough flow of attention units because there was something in what we studied that re-stimulated us. And in the past, we've dealt with what's called mathematical engrams. Many of us encountered certain things in school that have frightened us away from the study of mathematics and science. It was probably a teacher that was condescending. Those of us that are old enough to remember the times when you had to go up to the front of the class, the teacher would give you a problem to work out on the board. And the whole walk up there, your mouth got dry, you started sweating because you know that you didn't know how to do it. And you knew all the children behind you were gonna totally make fun of you because you got it wrong, correct?
100% correct, sir.
Okay,
To the T.
okay. She's a graduate from the school of mathematical engrams. And Sister Shayla, could we say that you were able to overcome that?
Yes, sir. Only, and if the truth be told, that's only lately, Brother Lukman, thanks to your expertise in the tech. Because now I approach not that minister didn't tell this for years and years and years and years and lectured and lectures and lecture, but until you brought it the way that you brought it and you showed me how possible it was that I can master, it totally disappeared. But for years, it was, I was a prisoner in my own head with all the guards holding me in. And that's where it was at. So thank you.
Praise be to Allah.
Praises be
There's a
to Allah.
success story right there.
Praises be.
So ultimately, in this part of what we do on Wednesday, the goal is we want to understand the tech and make it applicable to the supreme wisdom, but specifically, we want to start going into the problem book and start cracking open the problem book because the problem book is actually you and I. We're the problem book. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The Savior says that he's given us this problem book so we can study, we can understand our miserable condition in a mathematical way, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so on one level, the problem book is the self. And as long as we avoid mathematics, we avoid our own mathematical theology. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. I got to start moving fast. Okay. Study tech, start moving a little quicker. So follow the study technology. The study tech is a scientific process that, when followed, guarantees a learner masters and learns what is being studied. Okay. According to L. Ron Hubbard, much study has gone into the origin and function of words, with very little study on the effect that words have on the human being. Words are very important. And that's one of the reasons why the misunderstood plays such a significant role. I want to do an experiment real quick. Do an experiment. Where's my Holy Quran at? Oh, give me 1 second. Now, those of you that have seen this experiment done before, don't answer the question. Don't answer the question. This is only for the new ones. Let's see, who can I ask? Sister Peggy, can you see the book I'm holding up? What if I told you, now you might get this right. What if I told you that this book is red? What would you say?
Okay, but it looks green.
Okay, but what if I told you I could prove to you that this book is red?
I would not believe you.
Okay. This is why words are very, very important. When I
Oh,
say-
wait, yes, I got
Okay,
it. The book
okay.
has been read, R-E-A-D.
There you go. All right. So words are very important. Now, when I used to work as a chaplain in the prison, I would make the same statement to the brothers in the prison. I said, look, what if I told you I can prove that this book is red? And the brother be like, nah, brother, nah. I said, brother, if I can prove it's red, you owe me 25 push-ups. And the brother's like, okay, I'll take you up on that. I say, isn't this book read by everyone? And they're like, oh, come on, brother. I'm like, hey, I said it was read. It's not my fault that you didn't understand which red I was talking about. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
So words are very important. The Savior says in the 13 rules of instruction that there's more in the word, correct?
Yes.
Okay. We got to speak correct pronunciation in past, present, and future tense being perfect. Yes?
Mhm.
Okay. So when you look at the study tech helps us identify the barriers in the physical manifestations that develop and show us what to do to handle or solve the problem. Now, we're not going through all the aspects of the study tech, but if you go to Scientology.org and take that course, there is something that takes place as we're studying, and it produces a physical manifestation. And if you're aware of the physical manifestation, you'll be aware to what specific barrier you've just encountered. I'll give you an example. For those that have ever done coursework at the org, in the classroom, what happened to you when you yawned?
You missed the word.
I mean, but what, didn't a Scientologist march straight up to your desk and say,
Right.
did you happen to, right?
Yes.
And some of us, everything's for real because we're not clear yet. You know, when someone walks up to us like that, we automatically get re-stimulated. Does that make sense? You know, if you walk up to me too fast, because Brother Lukemon's not clear yet. So you gotta, when you come up, there's a certain way you gotta, you can't just come up real quick like that. Have we ever experienced where we're studying something and we get tired and we do this, we go, and
Mhm.
I
Yes.
start hurting?
Mm-hmm.
And what do we say? I must be sleepy, right?
Yeah.
Nope. That's not what it is. It's not that we're tired. These are physical manifestations that show that there's something that we missed.
Mhm.
Correct.
So if you got the physical manifestation and you trace it back, it tells you exactly what barrier have you encountered? Has there been lack of mass? Was there too steep of a gradient? Or was there a misunderstood word? Okay, and that's why the tech is so important. You can almost self-audit yourself as you're studying, and you can determine exactly what just happened. Okay. So we deal with actual facts. One thing that L. Ron Hubbard says is, it never does a student much good to know a few data. Oh, give me 1 second, family. There's something on my screen that's driving me crazy. Cancel that. Okay. About to lose my mind here. Okay, good. It never does a student much good to know a few data. In life, one succeeds only if he can use the facts. Okay, now, back when I came in the nation, we had to memorize the student enrollment, question and answer, and then we had to recite all 20 actual facts in order. Does anyone remember that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, what's the use of having actual facts if we never use the actual facts? Okay. Now, if I was to ask the question right now, and this is not to throw off on anyone, this is just to motivate us to get back into our study. How many of us remember those 20 actual facts?
Yes, sir.
I got a whole lot of silence on that one.
Yes, sir.
How many of us realize, how many of us realize that there's actually more than 20 actual facts?
When you look in the problem book, some of those are actual facts, right?
Yes, ma'am. You have more actual facts in the problem book. Okay. So what would be the purpose of knowing the actual facts? Well, knowing the actual facts actually opens the door to other levels of information. Okay, and I'll give you 2 examples real quick. When we know that light travels 186,000 miles per second, and the sun is 93 million miles away, isn't that how the minister explains that 500 seconds it takes, and this is coming from Closing the Gap, from light to leave the sun to get to the earth?
Yes.
Okay.
8 minutes,
And when you do the math, 500 seconds comes out to what, 8 minutes and 20
8 minutes.
seconds?
Right.
20 seconds.
Okay. So that means in understanding those actual facts, not only does it give us an understanding of a concept that is in place within our solar system, but it shows that there's ARC between our physical makeup and the solar system in which we live. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But come on,
Yes.
how, okay, you divide the 800,
Nope, you divide 500 by 60.
oh,
So you divide the 500 seconds into increments of 60, which gives you converting it to minutes.
Minutes. Mhm.
Okay. So then
Oh.
what happens is the 60 will go into 500 8 times, and that gives you 480. And then you have 20 seconds left over.
okay. Okay.
You good on that?
Yes, sir. So the 186,000 miles per second and the 93 million miles from the sun.
Oh, that's when you're dividing now. You're taking 93 million. And make sure I'm doing this math correctly. You're dividing that by 186,000. But now, one day we have to go over what's called scientific notation, because there's an easier way to do the multiplication when you have all those doggone zeros.
Right.
Mhm.
There's an easier way to do it. Okay. And that's something that I'll make a note of it. That's something we can do at another time. But that's how you come up with that number.
Okay, so, all right, so that's how you come up with 500.
That's gonna give you the 500,
The 500,
500
Min-
seconds.
500 seconds, okay. Okay, got you.
Now here's another one. Here's two, one of which you might have heard before, the other one you may have not heard before. But when you look at actual fact number 11, okay, it says, now let me ask this question first. Have you ever heard the statement that no man is an island?
Yes.
Yes.
And now what does that mean?
No idea.
No, no man can do it by himself.
No man can do it by himself, right?
Right.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
No man is independent.
Mhm.
Okay, now let's look at an island, because an island is something that separates itself off from the mainland, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Surrounded
Let's
by
look at the
water.
island as a
Water.
demo kit. We're going to get into demo kits. What is a demo kit? A demo kit is a physical representation of a concept, an idea, or a thought. Okay. If an island is a demo kit for an individual, let's ask ourselves the question first. What exactly is an island? It's a landmass.
Surrounded by
Surrounded
water.
by water.
So by it's surrounded by how many degrees?
360.
360 degrees of water.
360 degrees of water. Now, if water represents knowledge, and if the island represents an individual, what type of individual would it represent?
A fully learned individual.
A fully learned, a person that has 360 degrees of wisdom, yes?
Wisdom. Mhm.
Yes, sir.
Now, in the actual facts, when you look at actual fact number 11, it says the islands are what? What's the square mileage of the islands?
1,910,000 square miles.
Okay, if you look at the first four numbers, what year do you get?
1910.
Who came in 1910?
Master Farad Muhammad.
An individual that has 360 degrees of wisdom, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we can say that, and now this is just the way I look at the actual facts. This is how I remember them.
Okay.
I make them relevant. I look at the numbers, I look at the patterns. I know that actual fact is number 11 because of 1,910,000. The number 11 is in there, right?
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
And that's how I remember. That's the 11th actual fact. But I looked at the actual fact and I compared that to, that's a demo kit that represents when the Savior actually first came in 1910, because he was here for 20 years, correct? Before he made himself known.
Yes, sir.
Okay, here's one more and then we'll keep going. Years ago, I worked as a paramedic, so I had to study cardiology, respiratory science and whatnot. The average breath a person takes is 18 breaths per minute. Okay, that's the textbook answer for the average breath. Now, if you do the math, 18 breaths per minute comes out to 25,920 breaths per day. Okay, if you do the math out, you'll come to the number 25,920. Does anyone know the significance with regards to the universe of the number 25,920?
Is that the circumference?
Hmm.
No?
No, that's the 25 cycle of history. That's the Quran.
But you're close. You're close. If you study what's called a cosmic or a celestial year, the time it takes for the planet Earth to go through all 12 signs of the zodiac, it takes 25,920 years. That's called a celestial year.
Oh.
So there's a direct correlation between the universe and the mechanics of the universe and the mechanics. So when the minister says in the video, when he talks about mathematics, he says, we are the microcosm of the macrocosm, right?
Mhm.
So as we study the universe, who are we studying?
Ourselves.
Yeah.
Studying ourselves. The outward manifestation of the universe is only a book that we read to learn more about who we are as an individual, correct?
Mhm, mhm.
Yes, sir.
And the more we learn about ourselves, the more we understand the book, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm.
So I'm going to show you one aspect of how to use the actual fact, because it becomes relevant as we go into our study of the problem book. And what are actual facts in the language of Dianetics? In Dianetics, they're called stable datum. So if I say stable datum, I'm talking about actual facts. And if I say actual facts, I'm talking about stable datum. So we're talking about the same thing. Okay. The minister has said to marry the supreme wisdom with the supreme tech, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And for those that are brand new to the group, what we do is we go into the Holy Quran and we do word clearing on the Arabic words. And what we have found is that when you do the Arabic, if you go into the Arabic dictionary, you come face to face with the terminology that's used in Dianetics. Have we not seen that already?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
One term in Arabic is called zawj, the word zawj. So a person might say, that's my zawj, that's my wife, okay, my spouse. But the word zawj means to marry, but it also means to find elements that correspond or are equivalent. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So when we want to marry the supreme wisdom with the supreme tech, the goal is we want to find the concepts that are in Islam that are equivalent to the elements that are in the Church of Scientology. And by understanding those equivalents, we can use the tech to get a better understanding of our Islam and use Islam to get a better understanding of the tech. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions up to this point? Okay. Knowing versus proving. We know that the circumference of the planet Earth is 24,800, that's supposed to be 24,896 miles.
6.
That's an error. That fact, mistakes don't exist. I don't know how that slipped through. I was probably just rushing. All right, there we go. Mistakes don't exist. So we know that as an actual fact, right?
Yes.
How would we prove it? Using our actual facts. How do we prove it? And I know there's some individuals in here that are fully capable of proving this, but they're being humble right now.
Is that where you use the formula of pi?
Yes, ma'am. So what is so how do we prove it? And why is this important? Our lessons say this: what is meant by the laborer's answers to all lessons in the past, present, and future being perfect is that we must know and be able to prove at all times to the new converts that the lessons that our Savior Allah gave us to study and learn is the fulfillment of the prophecies of all the former prophets. We have to be able to know and prove, correct?
Sir.
Okay. So if I say an equation has three basic components, okay, who remembers the equation to solve for the circumference of the planet Earth? Who remembers the equation? I know Sister Anya knows it, and I know Sister Tina knows how to do the operation. She's the PEMDAS scientist. I know Sister Anya knows it, but who else? Sister Shayla should know it.
You do what inside the bracket first?
That's the PEMDAS, most definitely. But no. So for an equation, the basic elements of the equation. Now, if you don't understand this part, don't worry about it, because as time goes on, between now and the next 90 days, those that might have a little trouble with mathematics, I will guarantee, God willing, that you will be able to handle certain aspects of algebra. Okay, it's just the way in which we teach it. We teach it in a way that makes it very easy to understand. Sometimes it's not that you can't understand mathematics, it's just that the teachers teach it in a way that makes it more complicated than it really is. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. So using what's called a cycle of action, start, change, and stop. I'm gonna give you the equation, but I'm gonna give you this right here first. In every equation, there is an input, meaning there's a letter where you input a number. And I'm gonna show you what I mean, but I'm just gonna give you this part first. Then you actually have the actual equation itself. And then that produces what's called an output or an answer. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. In every equation you will find in mathematics, when you're working from algebra all the way up, here's the beauty of mathematics. How many operations are there in mathematics?
4 basic one.
Who said that? Sister Shayla, was that you?
Uh-huh.
4. So now, if you start with basic arithmetic, add, subtract, multiply, and divide, if I get all the way up to trigonometry and calculus, are there more operations than those 4?
Yeah.
No.
No.
So
So if you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide, that means you have the ability to do anything from arithmetic up to calculus, because there's only 4 operations. But in all honesty, there's really only 2, because a multiplication is just fast addition,
Mhm.
and division is fast subtraction. Does that make sense?
yes.
Okay. Because if you get a paycheck, when you look at those taxes, that's subtraction, right?
Right.
But if they take half your check, that's fast subtraction, yes?
Mhm. Real fast.
Real fast, okay? So who remembers the basic equation to figure out the circumference of the planet Earth? Who remembers the equation?
Oh, that's when you gotta do it.
Okay, I'll give it to you. There's 2 equations, but we're gonna use, we'll use one of the 2. Circumference equals pi times d. Do we remember that? Does anyone remember that one?
I remember it, but
Okay.
I never did write it down, so
Okay.
it didn't stick.
And here's the thing, if you're not constantly using it, it's like anything else. If you don't use it, you lose it. But it's still recorded on your time track, because as soon as I said it, how many people say, ah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
It's there.
sir.
Okay. So when you look at pi times d, okay, and here's one of the main premises of study. Take the equation and break it down into its component parts. What does pi represent?
3.141.
Yes, pi represents 3.141.
Mhm.
Okay. And if you come at it from the perspective that Mother Tanetta Muhammad mentioned it, she says, when you take the number of lessons in our supreme wisdom, you come up with the number 154, correct?
Yes.
When you divide 154 by 7, what number do you get?
Was it 144?
No, 154 divided by 7.
22.
You get the number 22. And then when you divide 22 by 7, what number do you get? You should get 3.14. You
Right,
come up
right.
to the number. So the number pi is mathematically found in our supreme wisdom lessons.
Wow.
Okay, and that was something that Mother Tanetta Muhammad shared many years ago. Okay. So now if you take that number, circumference equals pi times d, okay? D represents the diameter. So what's the diameter of the planet Earth?
7,926 miles.
7,926 miles. So now once you have those numbers, all you do is you change the letters to numbers. So now you just went from doing algebra to doing arithmetic. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
That's just how fast it happens. The first formula, that's algebra. Algebra is only mathematics where the letters take the place of numbers. And those letters can represent any number. Okay. And the word algebra comes from the word al-Jabbar, which is one of the attributes of Allah, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And it was a term that was coined by Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi, which was a mathematician. And that's where you get the word algorithm from his last name, al-Khwarizmi. An algorithm is a step-by-step process to solve a problem. Does that make sense? Okay. So once you plug in the numbers, what's the operation? So now you got the formula. So I got my elements. I got 3.141. I got 7,926. What is the relationship between those two numbers? What operation am I applying?
Multiplication.
Multiplication. Once you can identify the basic elements of the equation, your input, your flow, and your output, then no matter how complex the equation, there's only 4 operations, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if you can do those 4 operations, you can do any level of mathematics that you apply your mind to. So when you do the math, it comes out to 24,895.566, and then you round up. So that's how you prove. See, we can recite and say, yeah, to come to the planet Earth is 24,896 miles. How do you prove it?
Okay, what was that answer you got again? 24, what was it?
24,896.
No, but you said point and then you rounded it up.
When you use a calculator, you'll get 24,895.566. You get a decimal. And the rules with regards to decimal is if you get a 0.5, if it's 5 or above, you just round up. If it's 4 or below, you round down. Okay. Does that make sense, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sister Shayla. Yes, ma'am.
And that's when in your PowerPoint, that's how that mistake got in.
That, you know
'Cause
what, you read my mind. That's exactly how it got in, because I was looking at the decimal and I just got carried away and I didn't round up. Yep. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Brother Lukeman, can you go back to that screen just for a second so I could take a shot?
Yes, ma'am. That's it right there.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay. Okay, barrier. We're gonna get into some real juicy stuff here in a minute. I'm actually excited even to be blessed.
Recording in
Hey. Where'd that come from?
I think that went my phone.
Yes, because I see you on twice, so yes, ma'am. So, okay, we're good. You gotta turn off the sound on one of them.
I'm sorry, everyone.
No problem, Sister Shayla, that's not a problem. Okay. Briefly, we'll touch on a misunderstood word, but there's a real important point that's gonna be made. So L. Ron Hubbard says the most important barrier, at some point in your reading, you will come across a word that you do not understand or may have the wrong understanding. This will create spiraling misunderstanding if not handled. Now, let me pose this question. Sister Peggy, if I could pick on you for just an instant. When I initially held up that book and said, this book is red, what were some of the thoughts that went through your mind, if you don't mind sharing?
You said is in the present tense. That's what I was thinking, is this book is read, but if it's had been read, it would have been this book has been read.
Right, but when I said this book is read, do you remember some of the thoughts that went through your mind at that instant?
Oh, my thought was, oh no, it's not read.
Okay.
That
And
book is,
I say that to say this, how many times has someone said something and we took it the wrong way based on our interpretation, and maybe just a little bit of animosity came up? Not saying that that was you, Sister Peggy. I'm just saying, just generally speaking, we might have been a little antagonistic because they said it one way, but we received it in another. And then we took on the emotional state of looking at the person like they're dumb as hell. Has that ever happened?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as soon as we get that antagonism, what have we just did with regards to the tone scale?
On down.
We started going down.
Mhm.
What happened to our perception with regards to that person?
It was crooked. It wasn't straight.
It was exactly. So now what happened was we carried the negative emotion because we misunderstood the word.
I thought you were trying to.
Go ahead, Sister Peggy.
Or that when you presented it to me, I thought you were trying to trick me. I said, this is trying to trick me.
Well, I was. I was, definitely. Okay. So here it says, will create spiraling misunderstanding if not handled. Again, if we don't ask someone to clarify the word, what happens? We begin to spiral because of our emotion. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then what happens is, then we start making judgments about the other person based on our misunderstanding, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then we might carry that emotion around for a while and have a negative opinion about that person. And it was all based on the fact that it was our own ignorance.
Mhm.
Okay. So what happens is when you have a misunderstood word, have you ever started doodling or daydreaming or yawning?
Yeah.
Okay. When these things take place, it's showing that there's a word that was misunderstood somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the misunderstood word is one of the things that will actually cause a person to stop studying. Have you ever studied something, you stopped studying, and then the excuse you used was, well, the teacher didn't like me, or I didn't like him because he said it like this. I said, I'm not going back because he or she, have you ever used that excuse?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And really all it was is there was something there we misunderstood. When you go deeper into the tech, and we'll do this at another time, there's what's called an overt motivator, what's called an overt cycle with regards to study. And it's a whole cycle of things that take place after you get a misunderstood word. There's all these other things that take place. And then the end result is we don't complete what we have studied. And then as years go by, the amount of incomplete cycles of action pile up.
Mm.
And the incomplete cycles of action have piled up is one of the reasons why we are in a chronic restimulation on the mental level. And we get to the point where it's hard for us to study anything because we have all these other cycles that are already there. Does that make any sense?
Yes, sir.
Sure.
So the solution to the misunderstood word is to go back to where there was no trouble. When you're flowing with what you're studying, and then what happens is you find out where the trouble began. And where we were flowing freely and where the trouble began, there's a misunderstood word in there somewhere. Okay. Now, where are these barriers found in the Holy Quran? Because remember, Allah says in the Holy Quran, I have given you a book explaining all things. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does that mean explaining all things except Dianetics?
No, sir.
In the year one, did the scientists not see Dianetics coming to the nation in 2012?
Yes.
course they saw it.
Okay. Now, here's something, and this is for those that are new to the group. Can we go into the teachings of the Most High Elijah Muhammad and prove it?
Oh, I'm sure.
Our Savior has arrived, right?
Yes.
The Most High Elijah Muhammad says this: there's going to be a 20-year period where our mind is going to be made clean, correct?
Yes.
It's on page 81, 82, somewhere around there. And during this time period, the Most High Elijah Muhammad says that the brown germ will be removed, and we'll get, and I'm paraphrasing, we'll get to a point where we will not even be able to sin.
Mm.
And eventually get to a point where the things of this world, we won't have no memory of it. And he says our mind will be made clean. 20-year period. But now the Most High Elijah Muhammad gives us a starting point. He says that the judgment, he uses the word judgment, will begin 1,380 years after the death of the prophet. It will go up until 1,400 years after the death of the prophet. Now, in order to solve this equation, you have to know what year that the prophet passed away, peace be upon him, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, if he passed away in 632 AD, if you add that to 1,380, what year do you get?
Say the numbers again, please.
1,380 plus 632.
So 2012.
You get the year 2012. What is the significance of the year 2012 with regards to the Church of Scientology and the Nation of Islam?
That's when Dianetics was
That's when the
presented.
minister put us on the course that
Now, we know that it was first introduced in 2010 to the laborers.
Right.
Yeah.
And we know we had Savior's Day 2011 is where the minister actually taught on it. But 2012 was the first time that we did large-scale auditing from Mosque Mariam. Another key point. In the Savior Day speech from 2011, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan makes this statement. He says, I found something 35 years ago.
Mm.
Yeah, he did.
And it was that time period that the Church of Scientology would have their booth at Savior's Day promoting Dianetics, correct? Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
Yes. You're
Now,
correct.
I personally looked at that statement as 35 years ago as we make them study 35 to 50 years before they can come among us and do trade,
Right.
okay? And then there's an ayah in the Holy Quran that says, I will give you a merchandise that will save you from the destruction, a merchandise. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's just me, my opinion. That's just how I look at it.
Brother Lukman, where in the Quran does it say that, please?
Oh, well, you know, let me pull up my, I'll give you, let me give you the stable datum.
Yeah, get the receipt.
Say what?
I said, get the receipt.
Gotta get a receipt. Gotta get a receipt. My dad always said, you always keep your receipts because you can talk smack, but he didn't use the word smack, but you okay. Okay. Okay, it is in Surah 61, ayat number 10. And it says this, it says, O you who believe, shall I lead you to a merchandise which will deliver you from a painful chastisement?
Wow.
Okay. So a merchandise was delivered to us that would allow us to circumvent a painful chastisement. And then when you go into the Arabic word for merchandise, it's talking about trading and commerce, which means we will come amongst someone who will give us something that we will probably have to pay for that will deliver us from a painful chastisement.
Mm.
Just one way of looking at it. Sister Tina, go ahead.
Yes, sir. When you just read that, I looked at lead, and the leader led us.
Go ahead. Right. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Mhm. Shall I lead you to a merchandise? Yes.
Mhm.
Praise be to Allah. Okay, study tech in the Holy Quran. So take everything that we have just spoken about, and now let's see if we can summarize it using one ayat. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Nay, they reject that whose knowledge they cannot compass and whose final sequence has not yet come to them. Okay. Why do we reject knowledge? Because there's some misunderstoods in there somewhere.
Mm.
Okay. That's Surah 10, ayat number 39. So if we look at this as a cycle of action, how does the cycle start? The inability to compass knowledge. The word compass means understand something.
Mhm.
So when we have the inability to understand something, what happens? We have the inability to identify the final sequel. In other words, we don't understand why we're doing it. Some of us might have said this when we were in school. Why would I want to learn mathematics? When will I ever use that? I'll take the laughter as a bearing of witness that someone just went back on the time track.
I was thinking of my granddaughter who
When
always
will I
talks
ever
about,
use
why do I
that?
have to learn algebra? Why do I have to know math when I'm into fashion and design?
Yeah, well, I tell you what, you want to be in fashion and design, you want to learn math, let me keep your books. Let me be your accountant.
Exactly.
Because a
told
wicked
you-
deceiver will track your books all day long and just let you fashion and design. And
Mhm.
then you'll be like every other Black man and Black woman in show business. They die broke and the
Exactly.
accountants are rich.
Exactly. That's what I said to her.
That's why you got to know the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Because the minister said numbers, he said, John, Minister Louis Farrakhan said, that's why numbers use the word numb. He says they have no feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So when you work with numbers, there's no emotion. They're very objective.
Right. Exactly.
You don't care about emotion when you deal with numbers. Okay. So if we don't understand the knowledge and we don't understand the final sequel as to why we're doing the math, then what happens is we reject that knowledge, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So many people have judged the minister with regards to the Dianetics, but they never took the time to read the Dianetics to see, is there something here? People fail to realize that the Most High Elijah Muhammad said, wherever he says go, go, and wherever he says stay from, stay from.
Mm-hmm.
The minister has already been vetted. And the Most High Elijah Muhammad already knew he wasn't going to point us in the wrong direction.
Right.
Okay. So when one fails to understand the elements of a subject, and this is where we're going to get into some of the key points, the elements of a subject, and fails to understand the reason behind the study, then one will reject the subject. But now here's the primary goal of what we do here. If we can show brothers and sisters, the believers, that this tech is already in our Supreme Wisdom, our problem book, Lost Found Muslim lesson 1 and 2, this wisdom is already in the teaching. Now, when I say Supreme Wisdom, I'm talking about all of the books. Our Savior Has Arrived, Fall of America, How to Eat to Live. Okay, so Supreme Wisdom encompasses all the books. And if it's in the Holy Quran, then the believer will be less reluctant not to study because they will understand that we already have this tech.
Mm-hmm.
We just haven't studied our lessons in the Holy Quran in depth to see that what we have already been given by the Most High Elijah Muhammad encompasses all of the knowledge that's out here currently. Otherwise, the Savior is not the Savior. He can't be God in person.
Mm.
But he gave us a wisdom that has like timestamps on it. Certain information comes into fruition at the proper time. Okay, we can't get all of the knowledge at one time. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, certain information has to occur with respect. There's some things we have to learn instantaneously, and there's certain things we have to learn over a prolonged period of time. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Brother Lukman,
Yes, ma'am.
right fast. I can't remember what book this was in, but Sister Ava, may Allah be pleased with her. She was saying how there's gonna come a knowledge that's gonna be big knowledge that's gonna come. And if our brains are not ready to receive it, it will bust our brains. It will bust them. You know, if
Mhm.
our mind, I can't, did she say brains or mind? But it will bust our brain if we're
Mhm.
not, if it's not conditioned to receive the knowledge. So yes, sir, I feel what you're saying.
Mhm. So that's like getting new, you have to get new wine in a new wineskin, isn't it?
That's right. Yes, that's right.
Okay, because if you get new wine in an old wineskin, what happens to the old wineskin?
Yeah, wine's gonna break.
You break and you lose all the wine, right?
That's right.
Okay, now let's use a demo kit to explain the concept. For all those that, to all the sisters that have had children, you have a nervous system and you have what's called the hormonal system. The nervous system is a system of communication that happens instantaneously. Hormonal system is a system of communication that happens gradually over time, correct? What happens if you reversed those communication systems and when you got burnt on the stove or you put your hand on the fire, you were operating on a hormonal system? And what happens after a sister becomes pregnant if she became pregnant and then overnight, tomorrow, her body was ready to give birth to an 8-pound baby? You flip-flop those communication systems, and being burned on the stove using hormones over a gradual period of time means what? You're not gonna lift your hand up fast enough and you're gonna lose your limb, correct?
Right, right.
The other side of looking at it is to become pregnant today and then have an 8-pound child tomorrow. That's too much change, too much expansion of the womb, and too many changes in the mind. That'll drive someone crazy, correct? So there's certain things we have to learn immediately, but there's certain things that we have to learn over time so that we can gradually grow into the comprehension of it. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I don't know where it comes from, but it reminds me of the messenger saying, there is much I can tell you, but you can't bear it.
You can't bear it. Yes,
So,
ma'am.
Gradually,
And that kind of goes back to what Sister Tina was saying. It reminds me of Closing the Gap on page 312 and 313, where Brother Jabril talks about how we're in the kindergarten of Master Farah Muhammad's knowledge.
Mhm.
And we can't even comprehend kindergarten. So first grade comes and we all gonna fail,
Exactly.
okay? So the cycle of action is we begin study of a subject, okay? Failure to compass the knowledge. So we begin to study, there's certain things in there we fail to understand. So we fail to see the final sequel. We don't understand the reasoning of getting from point A to point B. We don't understand the flow through what we're studying. What happens is we reject the knowledge. But after we reject the knowledge, what do? We either blame the teacher, we find an excuse to discontinue the study, or finds fault with self. I'm stupid. I can't do it because I'm stupid.
Mm.
So now what happens is we put the label of stupid on ourselves, correct? And then in the language of the text, when we call ourselves stupid, isn't that like a circuit?
Mhm.
Isn't that a demon circuit?
Mhm.
Okay. 3 key points to study. One must understand the specific rules with regards to the concept that we're studying. Okay, there's rules. So when you go from arithmetic up to fractions, how many operations are there when we deal with fractions?
Okay.
How many operations? Well, let me ask this question. How many operations are in arithmetic?
We said 4.
Okay. So how many operations are there in fractions?
2.
4.
4.
Mhm. Same four, add, subtract, multiply, divide. The only difference is as you move up the ladder, there's different rules you have to learn. But it's the same four operations, add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, let me give you one quick example. If I say 3 plus 5, that equals what?
Subtract
3 plus 5 is 8.
Okay, that's easy, right?
Mhm.
Now, if I say 1/3 plus 1/3, does that equal 2/6?
Mm-mm.
It equals 2/3, right?
That's right.
Dos tercios.
Fractions has another set of rules because, well, why didn't you add the 3's together? Because there's another set of rules. It's the same operation, but there's another set of rules you have to learn.
Okay.
And that's what trips us up when we learn math. We miss the rules. The rules change as you go up. But the higher you go up, you'll start to see that all these rules gel together. Okay. So when you understand the specific rules with regards to a concept, that's called the stable data.
Okay.
In Islam, we call it actual facts.
Mhm.
We say the Nation of Islam is all wise and does everything what? Right?
But exactly.
Exact. That's stable data. So now one must understand the doing this. Oh, give me 1 second. Why is this happening? Oh, quick fix. This. Okay, why is this happening? Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So in doing this, when we work with that equation, we have to be able to get the flow through the equation. So in order to do the doing this, we have to understand what's called the sequence and the action. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Now, if you look at Surah 87, and you look at ayat 1, 2, and 3, there is a cycle of action there. And this particular ayat actually comes from study guide number 9, our intimate relationship with Rabbil Alameen. The minister brings attention to this particular ayat. This ayat is a cycle of action. It talks about Allah creates, then makes complete, measures, and then guides. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yes.
So to create and then make complete with regards to a cycle of action, that's your start and your stop. To measure and guide, that is your change. So when you measure something, isn't that the same as doing the mathematics on it?
Yes, sir.
But now what guides the mathematics? The rules, correct?
Yes.
So to get from the problem to the solution, you have to be able to do the math and understand the rules, correct?
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
If you understand those 4 concepts, you can do any level of mathematics that you choose, because the only thing you have to do outside of that is just practice. You have to practice. Just by me saying the word trigonometry, what effect does it have on some of you?
Figures.
Did it re-stimulate anyone? Did anyone have like some emotional flashback just by the word trigonometry?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay,
Makes your head hurt.
okay, now, watch this. What does the word trigonometry mean? Because 9 times out of 10, the word trigonometry is what's causing the confusion, and there lies the first misunderstood. Because if I say the word tri, if I say tri means what?
3.
3.
Mhm.
So a trigon is, if a polygon is a shape that has many sides, then a trigon is a shape that has what?
3
Three.
sides.
So a trigon is dealing with what shape?
Triangle.
And metry just means to measure. So when I say geometry, I'm talking about measuring different objects, correct?
Mhm.
Yes.
But when I say trigonometry, I'm dealing specifically with triangles.
Right.
Gotcha.
Now, how many of us had a little bit of case gain just by understanding the word trigonometry? Is just geometry dealing with triangles.
Mhm.
Okay,
sir.
Yes, sir.
so some of us are we are imprisoned, as Sister Shayla used the term, imprisoned by misunderstood words. Go ahead, Sister Tina.
You might want to explain this later because it's a little bit off the subject, but when you said rules, it made me think about the student enrollment rules of Islam. And it says that these questions must be learned 100% before submittance of student to said lesson number 1. So it's an introduction to lesson number 1. And I'm always wondered and still wondering, I still have to learn, why is student enrollment rules that we need to know before submittance of to said lesson number 1, you know, and why are they rules? Why is student enrollment rules? So when you spoke on rules, it just brought that back to me.
That's a good question. Now, I'm not going to say I have the answer to it, but I have my perception. Okay, if you look at the way our supreme wisdom is set up, you have the 13 rules of instruction. Then you have the rules of Islam, correct? You with me, Sister Tina?
The rules of Islam, that's student enrollment. You're talking about student enrollment?
Okay. And then you have the lessons, yes?
Yes.
And then you have a problem book, correct?
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now if you look at the format of any mathematical, like a textbook, if you have a chapter, say chapter 1 is dealing with algebra, okay, you'll have an introduction in that chapter. Then you'll have different places that'll show specific theorems, axioms, and rules. And then you'll have information that will be like the lessons that will explain the rules. And then at the end of each chapter, you have problems to solve to see if you understand what you just read, correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
So the way that I look at that is the problem book could be designed in such a way to see whether or not we actually understand the lessons and understand the rules. Another thing for us to look at is we need to clear the word rule. What does the word rule actually mean? And then by clearing the word rule, it might give us a better understanding of
Sure.
the 10 questions and answers. Now, I will say this from the level of to marry the supreme wisdom with the supreme tech. Question number 1 and answer number 1 of our student enrollment is what?
Who is the original man?
Man.
And the answer is what?
The original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe.
Okay. Now, when you take the word cream and you clear that in Arabic, the Arabic word for cream is safwa. And when you go into an Arabic dictionary, the word safwa means to be clear. Keep in mind, again, this is just my opinion,
Mhm.
but keep in mind, my assumption is the language of the Savior, his primary language is Arabic, correct?
Yes.
Now, I have not done this with every word in the problem book, but there are certain words that are capitalized that seem to stand out, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And what I have seen is that when I look at that word from the standpoint of Arabic, it gives me a whole nother level of clarity or understanding of that particular concept. That's
Okay.
just me. I take those capitalized words, I figure out the Arabic word, and then I get something totally that I never even thought of before. And it helps me even level connected to the tech.
Yes, sir. And cream rises to the top, and the
To the
clear
top.
all the way at the top of the chart.
So the cream goes up the tone scale,
Mhm.
okay?
Wow.
So then you have to understand, one must understand why. Okay, why are we doing the math? Why am I using this operation or versus this operation? So the theory of what you study is called the line of reasoning. In Dianetics, it's called the flow of thought. Y'all with me?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. Here's where we're going to get into, this is the end part, but here's the focus. In Dianetic tech, the student hat technology, you have something called clay table demonstration. Get this out the way here. There is a book called The Alphabet versus the Goddess. I've mentioned this book many times.
I have that book.
Who has it?
Me.
Oh, you got the book?
Uh-huh.
I have not completed it. It's a heavy read.
A
but
heavy read
It's a heavy read.
for
Okay.
me.
It's a heavy read for me.
I feel good now that you said that, but look.
No, it is a heavy read. Because some of the book I can't get into. I'll start reading it. I don't vibe with it. So if I don't vibe, I leave that for another time. And so the individual, Leonard Shlain, he's a vascular surgeon. And the premise of this book is this. Changing from picture-based language to a letter-based language changed the structure of the brain and the ability to think as a dual-brained individual, okay? What he's saying is, if you look at the ancient writings of the hieroglyphs of the Aztec, the Incas, the Maya, the languages were based on pictures. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. When you look at the language of Chinese and Japanese, those are actually rooted in pictures.
Right, the characters.
Or characters. But the characters actually derive from pictures.
Mm-hmm.
I think on one level they call them, they might call them ideograms, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And then what happened is Western civilization are left brain dominant, meaning they take things literally and they're focused on separating everything. Separating. If you want to get real in depth into that understanding, read a book called The ISIS Papers by Francis Cress Welsing, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they separate everything. And this is why you go to college, all the subjects are separated and it takes 4 years to get 1 degree. But when you go into the ancient studies of ancient Kemet or ancient Egypt, especially when we talk about Yaqub, it said by the age of 18, Yaqub had finished all the schools of his time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so what they said, what the doctor is saying is that in changing from picture, because when you teach in pictures, it helps to energize the right side of the brain, which they consider to be feminine. The left side of the brain is considered to be masculine. The left brain takes things literally. The right brain takes things holistically. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in other words, letter-based language destroyed the feminine aspect of our thinking.
Mm-hmm.
That's the premise of the book. Okay.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever they came to the ancient civilizations, they destroyed the artwork. They destroyed that because they couldn't understand the pictures because they're left brain dominant. We as original people are what you call dual brain dominant. We dealt with both sides of the brain.
Right.
So we understand mathematics, but we also understand it from a level of spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? That's called a mathematical theology. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Okay. Mathematical theology exercises both sides of the brain. So when you deal with right brain versus left brain, the student hat technology actually does this. And that's why it's so successful. So L. Ron Hubbard says he gives credit. He's not the source of this wisdom that he gives. He says it in a book called The Creation of Human Ability. And he says this, he says the source or the root of this knowledge comes from the Asiatics. Those are his words. Who are the Asiatics?
Us.
That's us. He bears witness that all the wisdom that he's giving He got it from us. L. Ron Hubbard did with the atom what Yakub did with playing with two pieces of steel. Because L. Ron Hubbard was a nuclear physicist, so he studied the atom.
Mhm.
And from the study of the atom, he extracted the laws of thought. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, just like Yakub playing with two pieces of steel extracted a whole race and a whole new universe and civilization. L. Ron Hubbard did the same thing through the study of the atom. But he studied the ancient wisdom of the original man. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense to me.
You know, when the minister said in the video in Los Angeles, he says, I found something, and he said it belongs to who?
The original man?
He said it belongs to us.
Us.
Yes? Go ahead, Sister Peggy.
Okay, sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Now I lost my thought. Okay, what exactly does it mean when you have dual brains? It means that you have the same focus of both the right and left brain versus
Yeah.
just the
Yes.
brain only?
A left brain dominant person will take things literally. Now here's
Yeah.
an example. Jesus walked on water.
Mhm.
I believed every word of it.
Jesus turned water to wine. Your left brain dominant, you take that literally, and you really think that Jesus walked on water and Jesus turned water into wine.
Right.
But when you incorporate the feminine side of the brain, you're able to look at that allegory or the metaphor and extract a spiritual principle from it. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay.
So then they taught us about that. If you're a Christian, you go in and they tell us, and so then we believe that. Does that mean that we're left-brained, or that we just are, that the right brain is just not working or not alive or not active?
Our whole sojourn in this country is based on them killing off the feminine aspect of our thinking. That's why, from another perspective, we can say a nation can rise no higher than its what?
Woman.
Okay.
Ah,
On an outward level, the physical woman, but we could also put that with regards to the feminine aspect of our brain. A nation, our mind, can rise no higher than the level of its what? Its right brain. If we don't awaken the right side of our brain, then we can't understand anything. And that's been part of our problem with studying the supreme wisdom. We've memorized it, but we have not been able to extract anything from it.
Right.
So now let me pose this one question.
Mm.
Does anyone understand the spiritual significance of turning water to wine? If not, I'll give you a great demo kit, a great example. Here's the example. If you're thirsty and you're given water to drink, how much water will you drink if you're thirsty? You drink enough to quench your thirst, yes?
Yes,
And after your thirst is quenched, you don't drink any more water, correct?
correct.
Hey, I'm gonna pose another question. I hope I don't re-stimulate anyone. With regards to wine, we didn't drink wine because we were thirsty. We drank wine because it made us feel good. And we went beyond our thirst and continued to drink the wine until we got drunk with the wine, correct?
Yep.
Okay, now watch this. Many, if not all of us, were raised in the church. Is that a
Yes.
safe assumption?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
So the same, well, if not for all of us, but for some, the same wisdom that the minister teaches us from the Bible is the same wisdom we grew up on, right?
Yes. For me.
Okay. But now in the church, we heard certain wisdom. Yeah, it sounded good. And then we went home and we were good with that until next Sunday. Yes.
Yes.
But when the minister teaches it, what do we say? Teach, brother. Keep teaching. What are we saying? We're saying, keep pouring, keep filling my cup. Why? Because he's turning the water into wine.
Wine.
Huh.
We're going beyond thirst now. We want to feel good.
Mhm.
So when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches any subject, oftentimes he takes subjects we already know, but he presents it in such a way we say, man, I never even looked at it like that. Keep teaching, brother. And then he'll say, and in my conclusion, in our minds thinking, no, keep pouring, keep pouring. Yes, does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay, so that's left brain, right brain. Now, left brain and right brain is very important with regard, and I always use this example with sisters with regards to children. When you want to get information from a child, you don't just look or listen to what they say. Don't you listen to how they say it?
Yes, sir.
Aren't you looking at body language?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Are you looking at eye contact?
Mhm.
Are you listening for inflection in the voice?
Yes.
You're using both sides of the brain. That's why sisters will catch a brother in a lie in a heartbeat, because you're not just looking at what the brother's saying, you're looking at how he's saying it.
Mhm.
Body language, voice inflection. Where's your eye contact? Are you looking up and to the right, or are you looking up and to the left? Which way you going? Are you making eye contact with me when you're saying it, or are you looking at the wall? Yes?
Mhm.
Woman,
Yes, sir.
he's
That's
very
you.
scientific, right down to the modern time.
That's using both sides of the
all I
brain. So Sister Peggy, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. But
Okay.
so again, the female brain is the right brain or the left brain?
No. Female have both. Male
Okay.
have both.
Mhm.
Have both. It's just that in this educational system,
Right.
the right brain was turned off.
Right
Mhm.
brain turned off. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh,
Right.
oh, yes, I get it. I get
Okay.
it now. The entire brain is feminine, right?
The entire brain, you have a masculine side and a
And
feminine
a feminine.
Okay.
But the educational system of this world is designed, I give you information, you regurgitate exactly what I gave you, and that's how you pass your test.
That's male.
I don't want your opinion. I don't want your viewpoint. You just parakeet what I give you. And if you can answer my multiple choice questions, that's how you pass. But I don't want you to explain your perception or your thought or your opinion. You don't give me an opinion. The only opinion you give is the one that I give you to give. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
There's no creativity in Western educational system. The right brain, they do with the right brain the same way Western civilization does with the woman. It's very misogynistic. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yes.
Go ahead, Sister Peggy.
So then when we hear that, when people are talking about our gifts and talents, and people are saying, well, you're more left brain or you're more right brain, they still have it wrong,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Okay, I've got it.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Sister Denise.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Loud and clear.
And that's why our children have to attend our university.
That's right.
I'm seeing right now because they're making robots and slaves
Mhm.
and out of our children and out of us.
Yes.
I remember one of my instructors. This is not a class where you question what I'm teaching you. I say, no, well, I'm thinking. You got me thinking. So this is what I think. It's not relevant, he says.
Mhm.
In this, I'm the teacher here. You just give, you just receive. You the receiver,
Mhm.
and I'm the giver.
Mhm.
I said, well, what if I don't like chocolate ice cream? Can I say that? I mean, is that okay? And it's like they see you as problematic because, if you study, because education is not in the classroom.
Mhm.
It's the classroom of God is outside. And I didn't know all this until I came into the nation dealing with my mind, that it has to be, that's right, out of this world, but you're not out of your mind.
Mhm.
You're in your right mind. We have to, as the minister said, we have to come out of her.
Mhm.
Her way of thinking, and that was something about you said about once you put it in language, and it goes out of the mathematical way, of solving the problem. Once you put it in a language, then you can do what? You know, you were saying once you put it in language. And that's how the Caucasian does. He used, because if he don't understand it, he'll name it, or because that's how he understands it.
Sometimes
So
they'll put fancy names on stuff they don't understand.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So it's not necessarily what it is.
Mm-mm. It's just
Once they
it's a long $30 word that we don't even understand, but they don't understand it either.
Exactly. Once they label it, okay, then they keep calling it that. Then that's not necessarily what it is. It's because they put a label on it. So if you
Mhm.
say a person is anti-Semitic,
You're
and you
reading
just
my
keep
mind,
saying
sister. That's exactly what I'm thinking.
and keep saying that, I say, oh, so that's the technology, is the language.
Telling
And
lies,
as long
stealing, and how to master the original man.
Original
Yes,
man.
ma'am.
Mhm.
Using the
Oh,
language.
man.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that wine that you talk about. You know, once you put things together, you want more of it. You know, just fill me up.
Mhm.
Oh, fill my cup till it overflows. Now it's like I come from church too, and I'm making a connection with all of this literally, that I've learned what it actually means and how you connect it. And when in Scientology, when I was taking the course, I mean, I couldn't wait till I got home to open up those study guides, because it's
Mhm.
like, whoa, wait a minute, this is a different way of looking at it. And I just, it's the beauty of really learning, and learning is fun, and learning is easy. But sometimes I guess people just, they figure if they make it hard, you know, you'll stay confused or complicated, and they won't have to answer your question. So that's what I was thinking about. Yes, sir. Thank you, brother Bookman, so much.
You're very right.
That's it.
You know, and just something that you had said. How many of us in this Zoom meeting were those that got kicked out of class because we were labeled troublemakers? Huh?
Me.
There's a
Me?
reason.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a reason why
Yeah.
all of us are together right now, because we were the ones that you couldn't just tell us anything, and we accepted it. We questioned authority. I never forget, and this is just a quick little sidebar. It was in my it was the semester right after the minister came to my campus. He woke up a hellraiser. I mean, I was already a hellraiser because I get that from my mother and my father. I was, you know, that's part of my family heritage, is to help to raise hell. I was born to do that. But the minister, when he came to my campus, my college campus back in 1990, you know, he woke up a monster. And I remember I was taking a class in ancient African history, and I cussed out the professor when he said the Egyptians were Caucasian. I stood up right in front of her. I said, not only are you a liar, but you're a damn liar. I said, that's not true. I got kicked out of class.
Yeah.
But we were all,
Well,
how many of us were the troublemakers? Can just a raise of hands? Who were the troublemakers in the, yeah, exactly.
well, Brother Luqman,
We were prepared for this.
They kicked me out of the church.
Damn.
I know. I had just a little knowledge from hearing the minister, and I went back to church, and I was so excited because I'm gonna let them know that it's more to God, you know. And they kicked me out the choir. They said,
Wow,
they didn't know
that's
who I
something
was.
you get kicked out of church.
I got kicked out of the choir, and then I got kicked out of church because he said that you're not supposed to question God. I said, I'm not questioning God, I'm questioning you. So you can't answer my. So that was reason to kick me out.
This is the
that's
least.
me.
You went straight gangster, didn't you?
Yeah, I went gangster on that.
Okay, you went gangster.
I went OG gangster. You know, it's like, you know, the teaching give you authority.
Yes, it does.
It frees you. What is the uphill road is to free a slave.
Go ahead.
You know, I'm free now. Hey, I don't care. I eat Navy bean suit for 6 years. You know, as long as I can have my right mind. You know, and all of us was, I wanted the rebellious. I couldn't believe they kicked me out of the choir
Wow.
because they didn't know who I was singing to. Jesus, Allah, what you singing to? I said, what difference does it make? I'm not singing to you. Hey, that was reason to not come back. We don't need you to come back because
Hey,
you're
well,
not.
they did you a favor.
Yeah, they did, and the rest is history. And I'm just loving what I'm learning. And like you always say, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
come.
And I'm to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, all of you, all of my teachers. Yes, sir.
Can the church say amen?
Sir?
I said, can the church say amen?
Amen.
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 Praise
Yes,
you.
sir.
Thank you. Sister Shayla, speaking of troublemakers.
Somebody else's hand was up, but no, I just wanted for the believers, anyone that brings up the word Farrakhan is anti-Semitic, just send them to look up the word because they don't know what it means.
Yes.
But you know, L. Ron Hubbard teaches you that in order for something to exist, people have to have agreement. So they keep saying the word and people just follow. Yes, that's what he is, but they never looked it up. Because if they looked it up, they'll have a whole different opinion just by doing that. And you will give them more unit of attention for their own life.
Yes, ma'am. And then once they learn the true meaning of the word, but they still continue to use it in the wrong way, they are causing it over on themselves and they're continuing their own aberrated state. So let them stay in their own craziness. That's how I look at it. Okay. Let us, ooh, man, look what time it is. Let's land this plane here. Okay, in the book, it says right brain functions is holistic, simultaneous, synthetic, and concrete view of the world are the essential characteristics of a feminine outlook. So that's the feminine brain. Left brain is linear, sequential, reductionist, and abstract thinking. Okay, so those how the two, but the two are different, but they harmonize. They're necessary. I remember, I'm paraphrasing this, the minister says something along these lines. He doesn't listen to what you say, he listens to your intention. Has anyone ever heard that before?
I heard it a little different when he says he didn't say he didn't listen. When I heard it, he says he listened all the way into your intention.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Okay. That's a receipt. I just want to make sure we had the receipt. That's one, we have ARC there, that's agreement. Then it says, of the twin human hemispheres, the right side is the elder sibling. So the feminine side, the right side of the brain is actually a little bit older than the left side. It says in utero, the right lobe of a human fetus's brain is well on its way into maturation before the left side begins to develop. Just like young girls begin to mature faster than little boys, he's saying the same principle applies to the brain. Does that make sense? Y'all with me?
Yes.
Okay. But here's another thing he says. The right hemisphere is also the portal leading to the world of the invisible. So here's where we deal with spirituality. You have to tap into the feminine side of the brain in order to start to elevate to these other realms of understanding. Does that make sense?
Yes, to me.
Okay. The understanding of metaphor is a right brain function. Okay. So automatically, when you disregard the feminine energy outwardly, you're disallowing yourself to even tap into the feminine aspect of the individual. So by degenerating the woman outwardly, you cut off your blessings from heaven to access that wisdom internally. Does that make sense? Just another way of looking at it. Then he says the left brain's primary function are opposite and complementary to the right's. And that TAVTG is just the alphabet versus the goddess. That's just the abbreviation for the title of the book.
Okay.
He says the right brain does not speak, yet it actively participates in the comprehension of the spoken word by listening carefully to the forms of speech. While the left brain is deciphering speech's content, the right hemisphere is expert at ferreting out hidden messages by interpreting inflection and nuances. Now, for some reason, I don't know why, this is either for me or it's for you, when it says the right brain doesn't speak, but actively participates in the comprehension of the spoken word, the term Big Mama came to mind. How many of us had that individual that didn't say too much, but listened and could catch us in a lie before we even finished the sentence?
Mhm.
Was that Big Mama that could do that?
Yes, my
Okay.
mother.
Okay. Clay table work. Here's where we're gonna finally land this thing. L. Ron Hubbard says this: any part of the mind can be represented by a piece of clay or a white card. The mass parts are done by clay. The significance or thought parts by label. A piece of clay and a label are both used for any part of the mind. So what you do in the student hat technology, you build something with clay and then you use a label to identify what it is that you just made. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So when you're making the clay, you're using the right brain, but when you write the label, you're using the left brain. Does that make sense?
I didn't know that. Thank you. Yes,
So
it makes sense.
by formulating something and labeling it, you're uniting both hemispheres of the brain now. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Mhm.
Then he says, go ahead, Sister Sultana.
Oh, yeah, so I was gonna say too, we know that the right hemisphere controls the left side of the body and the left hemisphere controls the right side of the body.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. That's why some people say that left-handed people are in their right mind. I don't know if that's true or not, but you know. Then it says, in the phrase, how do I represent it in clay? He says, in this is contained the secret of the teaching. If one can represent it in clay, one understands it. If one can't, one really doesn't understand what it is. So clay and labels work only if the term or things are truly understood. And working them out in clay brings about an understanding of them. In other words, he's saying if you can't work it out either in 2 dimensions on a piece of paper, and you notice when we did the coursework, we had the demo kit, that little bowl with the little trinkets in it in the center of the table, and you had to work out the concept using the trinkets, correct?
Yes.
If you can't work it out with the demo kit in 3 dimensions, or if you can't draw a sketch of something in 2 dimensions, in other words, if you can't put it into your own words, you don't understand it.
Right, right.
So he speaks about what's called the glib student. A glib student is someone who can recite the information and score 100 on a test, but can't apply anything. How is that? How is a glib student found in Islam? Have you heard the parable of the jackass carrying the books? If you
Yes.
put books on the jackass, they go up to the top of the mountain. When they come back, what is it? Still a
Still a
jackass.
jackass.
It carried the books, but it didn't read the books. It couldn't understand the books. Our problem is we might have had the lessons memorized, but we had not been able to extract anything from our lessons to apply it in our life.
Allahu Akbar. Well said.
And this is why the Most Honorable the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said it was like having a safe full of treasures, but we had lost the combination, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the use of both the mass and labels produces cognitions. L. Ron Hubbard says, when you start studying on this level, you draw a diagram in 2 dimensions or sculpt something in 3 dimensions, and you label what you're doing, he says cognitions will start to happen automatically. You'll start to have deeper cognitions into what you're studying. Okay, this is the marriage of the right and the left brain. Okay, Sister Sultana, did you have something else, or is your hand still up from the last time?
No, I'm good. I'm sorry, I'll put it down.
Yeah, I got it, no problem. I'm just
Excuse me,
working like
Brother
a
Lucian.
I'm working like a DJ between 3 computers. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have my hand up,
That's
and I
okay.
have to learn more how to do this, but it just brings to mind, as you've been talking about this, how we were always taught that the universe is a physical manifestation of the teachings, but it only leads us or guides us to the deeper spiritual meaning, which is the true meaning.
Yes, ma'am. And we're about to go there right now.
Yes, sir. Okay.
In the Bible, in the book of Romans, chapter 1, verse 20, it says this. I'm going to try to get it exactly right, but it says, for the invisible things of this world being made from the beginning are clearly understood through the things that are made, even God's power and the Godhead, so that they will be without excuse. Now, if you translate that, it's saying that there are invisible things in this universe and there's things that you see. But the only way you can study what you don't see is you have to study it through what you see. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you study gravity without using a physical object?
No.
You can't. But by studying the physical object, you can learn all about gravity, right?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So the universe, and this is a term that I was blessed to, it came to mind some time ago. The demo kit in Scientology was that little bowl of glass and trinkets, right?
Yes.
The universe is Allah's demo kit. Allah uses the stars, the planets, the heavens, the animals. All these are demo kits, and we're about to prove it. We're going to prove it. Everything in creation is a demo kit that represents something else. Okay. This is why throughout the Holy Quran, Allah shows us the water and the clouds and this. He says, and in this is understanding for those who reflect. It's like a way of Allah saying, here's a demo kit. I'm trying to communicate something to you. You got to study what I'm giving to you so you can understand the message that I'm giving you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So he says this, L. Ron Hubbard says this, now watch this. If the secret of the teaching is obtained from representing concepts in 2 or 3 dimensions, along with labels, what secrets are revealed when we use the atom as our demo kit? Because in our problem book, it talks about cracking atoms, correct?
Yes.
So we began to study the atom or study chemistry. What secrets would be revealed to us from Allah using the atom as a demo kit? What secrets are revealed when we use astronomy? Because when you deal with the problem book, aren't we given all this information about Mercury and Jupiter and Saturn and all these things? Aren't the study of those subjects supposed to teach us about our miserable condition in a mathematical way? Yes, y'all with me? So then isn't the study of Mercury the study of a demo kit? Yes or no? Did I just lose everyone?
I don't know what happened. Yes, sir.
I'm still here.
Okay, I just want to make sure because it got real quiet there for a minute. What we're doing is the minister says whoever controls the diameter of your thinking controls the circumference of your activity, correct?
Right.
So what we want to do is we want to expand the diameter of our thinking, because as soon as we expand the diameter, what happens to the circumference? It automatically gets larger, right?
Right. Expands.
Okay. So what we're doing is we're thinking outside of the normal box of where we used to be. We're looking beyond where we once were, and now we're expanding the circumference of our thought. L. Ron Hubbard calls these things theta facsimiles. In the language of Islam, they're called, I don't want to call it revelation, but to think about certain things that we've never thought about before does what? It takes and expands our level of consciousness, because now we're thinking outside the box, correct? Western education wants your thinking to stay right in here. Answer these questions, parakeet what I gave you. Don't go outside of this. Don't ask me questions about this over here. You stay right here. You
Yes,
get your paper in 4 years. And then if you're like me, Some of the subjects I studied in college, I don't remember nothing. I don't even remember who the professor was, but I still had to pay for that piece of paper.
That's right.
Okay. What secrets are revealed when we use our problem book as a collection of demo kits? If we take a problem from the problem book, represent it as a two-dimensional picture or a three-dimensional model, and label each aspect of that model, what cognitions would we begin to have about Allah, the universe, and self? Just something to think about. Now, here's where we find the significance of math with regards to our Islam. This is from Closing the Gap, page 19.
Brother Lukman?
Yes, Sister Rashida?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
said the last one you said that like if we open the problem book, what cognitions will we begin to have?
Mhm.
Can you repeat that again?
Yes, ma'am. It says if we take, now this is just something, this was my thought. If we take a problem from the problem book, represent it as a two-dimensional, meaning if we take that problem and sketch it out, make a picture of what that problem is saying, or a three-dimensional, we make a model out of it, and we label each part of that model, what cognitions will we begin to have about Allah, the universe, and self? In other words, if we take something and we draw a sketch of it, okay, and we label each part. Now, those of us that were on the last Zoom meeting, remember when we were talking about the earthquake and the epicenter and the tremors? Y'all remember? Yes, no?
Yes.
Sir, yes, sir.
And what we did was, we didn't put the labels on it, but we were saying that this could represent, the tremors could represent restimulation, and the epicenter, which is underneath the surface, could represent the basic. We were taking that, but we were putting labels on it. And then as we were going through it, didn't some of us have realizations of certain things that happen in our own personal life? Did anyone experience that?
Yes, sir, I recall.
Okay. So what happens is, as we study mathematics and science, but we study it from both aspects of our brain, right brain and left brain. You learn the subject, you understand the elements, and then what do? You put it in the fine language that you know. How can I relate this concept to give me a better understanding of myself? Information is going to start to come to the surface of your thinking. Okay. And in the words of a dear sister who I was blessed to meet only once in life, and then died under mysterious circumstances, Dr. Mona Harrison, back around 2002, 2003, Savior's Day, when it was in Los Angeles, he says that when you raise the vibratory rate of your thinking, she says the DNA inside your cells is locked up with these proteins called histones. She said, when you look at the word histone, you have two words. You have his and you have tone. And when you raise the frequency of your thought, you unlock the DNA and you are able to gain access to the wisdom that's encoded in your genetic makeup. She said that these were like the hidden scrolls that the ancient writings are written on. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, because the word that kept coming to me, Brother Lukman, is clear. I don't know why. The word clear, when you were mentioning that, the word clear came to my mind.
Okay.
As it relates to the problem, but
Okay.
you were saying, yes, sir.
Well, the rule number one says, lesson number one lays the base of our work today and gives a student a what knowledge of himself? You remember that?
Knowledge. Sorry, sir.
Say what?
Clear knowledge.
It says a clear knowledge, right? Okay. And
Sorry,
then,
yes.
and when you look in the Holy Quran, where it talks about, I'll get all of those except, you'll get all those except my purified ones. You've seen that before, right? When you take that word purified and you clear that term in Arabic, the root word is khalasa. And the word khalasa in the Arabic dictionary means to make clear.
Wow.
So the purified ones, based on the English, but when you go into Arabic, these are individuals that are clear. Okay.
Amazing.
Closing the Gap, page 19, it says this, Minister Farrakhan's words. Now let's look at the quality of the persons with whom the master first dealt. What was their condition? They were totally in the dark. They were a very ignorant people. Master Farah Muhammad, to whom praise are due forever, taught them in a language that was the way you teach babies. You teach babies using words that conjure pictures. Words that conjure pictures. That's a demo kit, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The picture is not the truth, but the truth is contained in the picture. But as long as the picture remains in the brain, as you mature in understanding, then you can reach into the picture and extract the principle of truth that lies therein. What is this doing? This is teaching left brain and right brain. Our wisdom is based on left brain, right brain education. Because we have the lesson, we have the verbal, we have the label, but then this is saying we have to extract a picture to get both. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Then the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said it like this, page 312, closing the gap. Almighty Allah has taught me that if we study the universe and the nature of the earth, its plants, animals, and insect life, if we study this part of Allah's creation and the natural laws working among them, we will have the key to the understanding of the way of life intended by God for you and me. This is the language of a scientist. Now remember, problem number 13 says we have to learn about our mathematical theology, correct? Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
Mathematics is a broad term. Is algebra a type of mathematics? Yes.
I would say
Could-
yes.
Could the only reason why I keep asking is the majority of us have our screens off and I'm trying to feed back off of feedback so that I know I'm not,
Only reason why I'm not talking in because I was trying not to interrupt, but yes, sir, you're absolutely correct.
okay. So now when we understand that, actually look a little bit deeper in this for a quick second. When you deal with universe from this quote, the science of that is called cosmology. Okay.
Dean,
When you take mathematical
Dean, would you
theology,
go to pull apart for anything?
say what?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. When you look at mathematical theology, and math is a word that represents a full spectrum of information. If you look at the word algebra as a derivative of mathematics, could we not talk about after learning Islam, which is algebra, and algebra is Islam, it stands true and you can always prove it in no limit of time? Could we say that?
Yeah.
Okay. Could we say after learning Islam, which is physics, and physics is Islam, it stands true, you can always prove it in no limit of time?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
So we can say after learning Islam, which is cosmology, and cosmology is Islam, it stands true and you can always prove it in no limit of time, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That means
Yes,
the cosmos would be the demo kit, and that would be called a cosmological theology, correct?
Mm.
Okay. Now, when you deal with natural laws, when you study natural laws, you're talking about physics. Could I say after learning physics, which is Islam, and Islam's physics, it stands true and you can always prove it in no limit of time?
Yes, you can.
So that means physics is the demo kit and there is a theology of physics. That means you can use physics to gain a knowledge of the universe, Allah, and self at the same time, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Well, plant life is called botany,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So after learning Islam, which is botany, and botany is Islam, stands true, you can always prove it no limit of time. That would be called a botanical theology. You're using botany as a demo kit to understand Allah, self, and the universe. Is this all making sense?
Yes, it is, sir.
So it goes back, I can't remember who mentioned it, it goes back to the fact that everything that you study is really giving us a knowledge of our spirituality, ourself, and God in self. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
Now, when you deal with insect life, interesting about insect life, we have Sarato Nahal, which is the bee, correct? Surah 16.
Mhm.
Yes.
What is the one of the most brilliant things to understand about the bee? When you look at the bee based on its aerodynamics, it's not supposed to be able to fly. When you look at its wing structure with respect to its body, technically the bee is not supposed to be able to fly. Now,
Why is that, sir?
it's just the aerodynamics of how the wings are made with respect to the body. Technically, the bee is supposed to be able to fly. Now, here's a question. How does the bee represent you and I? Because there's a lot of people that say we ain't supposed to fly, but guess what? We either have already proven them wrong, or hopefully from this point forward, we're going to prove them wrong.
Mhm.
But the bee is an example that just because something don't look like it can fly doesn't mean that it can't. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you deal with animals, you're dealing with zoology. Okay. So when we study the animals, but we understand it from the perspective of studying self, you're dealing with a zoological theology. Haven't we been told to study the ant?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Okay. And here's where we land the plane finally. I apologize for being so long, but
No, sir, you was not long at all. Praise be to Allah. You're
praise be
doing
to
great.
God. Here's where we find clay table demonstration in the Holy Quran, because it's already in there. A clay table demo is a three-dimensional representation of a concept, idea, or thought. I think we've driven that point home already, correct? You understand that point?
Mhm.
Sir.
What is a parable? Definition: a usually short, fictitious story that illustrates a moral attitude or spiritual principle. So it's a picture that contains a lesson. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. It comes from the Latin word parabola, which means allegorical narrative, comparison, allegory, or proverb, or speech. Okay. Here is what the word parable means in Arabic. I'm going to read the definitions and then you tell me what you see. In Arabic, the word is, well, I use one as an example. Allah disdains not to set forth any parable, a gnat, or anything above that. Now, here's the backdrop on this particular ayat. And this is just from a personal perspective. One of the things I used to do as a teenager, on the weekend, I would go to the mall, and there's three things I spent my time by myself. I've never been a hang in a crowd type person, because I guess growing up, I didn't like people. And that wasn't necessarily my fault, but I received a lot of headache because of my complexion and my background. Growing up down south, my father, jet black man, mother being Caucasian. So growing up in the South and then being from New York, I was that red bone brother who thought he was just so cute from New York.
Wow.
But to white folks down south, I was just a light-skinned nigger, basically. So I got it from both sides. So I grew up knowing God existed from the age, from a child's age, because when I was little, I would talk with God. Now, I don't know if that was real or not, but I remember doing it. I spent my time by myself. I would go to the mall when I got older. I'd go to Friendly's and get ice cream. Sister Shayla, is she still here? Oh no, she's not here. So ice cream was my big thing. Going to the movies and hanging out at the bookstore. I used to always hang out at the bookstore. Back in 1987, I didn't even know who the minister was, didn't know nothing about the Nation of Islam or nothing, but I used to hang out at the bookstore, and as God is my witness, I would spend my time in the New Age section. I would read books on New Age, on spirituality and all that kind of stuff. And I remember this particular day, something pointed me in the direction of the Bibles. And I was guided, and I'm not trying to make up no hocus pocus or spooky stuff, but I still remember this day. It was like something told me, pick that book up right there. And I went to the bottom of the shelf where all the Bibles were. I grabbed this book and I pulled it out, and it was the Holy Quran.
Wow.
This ayat, as far as I remember, was the very first ayat I read the first time I opened the Holy Quran. It was this ayat right here. Surah 2, verse 26. Allah disdains not to set forth any parable, a gnat or anything above that, which means everything in creation is a parable. Can we agree on that?
Mhm.
That means everything in creation, from the smallest gnat to the largest sun or planet or whatever, or galaxy, everything is a parable. Everything is a physical representation of a spiritual lesson. Does that make sense?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay. That being said, what does the word parable mean in Arabic? The Arabic word for parable is mathala. And I found it interesting that the first part of the word mathala is the word math, but that's just me, because math is my passion. I love math. But here's what the word means in Arabic: to be similar or analogous, to represent pictorially in 2 dimensions, or graphically, mathematically,
Wow.
to portray, paint, or sculpt. When you sculpt something, you're doing it in what? 3 dimensions, right?
Mhm.
So does the word parable have equivalence with the clay table demo kit? Parable and demo kit are the same thing.
Same. Mm.
To find visual expression. This is from an Arabic dictionary. So the parable by Arabic is a visual expression in 2 dimensions or 3 dimensions of a spiritual principle or lesson. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So the concept of clay table demonstration and the meaning of the word parable are equivalent. So how can this tech be used? Now I'm gonna give this, we gotta move fast. Okay. Digestion as a demo kit. Here's how digestion works. You have the food, correct?
Mhm.
As soon as you start to chew it, you start to break down the food into components. Digestion starts in the mouth, not in the stomach. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. When you digest food, you break it down into 4 components: proteins, lipids or fats, carbohydrates, and nucleic acids. And then what the body does is the body reconstructs those components based on what the body needs. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And then it transports the vitamins and the minerals and whatnot to the different parts of the body. The mind does the same thing. You start with a concept, break down the concept into its elements, and then you label each one of the elements. This is the study tech. You label each element, and then you identify the flow or the relationship between the elements. With the math, we found the 2 numbers, and then the flow was multiplication, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. And then you have to be able to explain the concept in your own words to show that you understand it. In other words, you got to put the wisdom in the fine language that you know. That makes sense. Everyone with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I'll save the examples for another time. I was going to ask us if we each had something that we wanted to use an example to get a better understanding of, but we'll use that for our next meeting. And then a quick summary is that the technology is a tool to be used as any other tool to increase our understanding. It's a tool. Okay. A barrier, if you look at it as a barrier, just change the language. It's not a barrier, it's a stepping stone. Okay. When I play chess, the games that I lose are the ones that are more valuable Because if I can learn from my losses, it makes my game stronger.
Stronger.
So the games I lose, the games I win don't count. Because I only won because the person made a mistake. And I capitalized on their mistake. But when I lose, that belongs to me, correct?
Mhm.
So we actually learn more from the standpoint of chess. We
Our
learn
mistakes.
more from our losses.
Mhm.
How many lessons have we learned in life from things that we've lost?
Countless.
Okay, exactly. The use of mass that's found in the study text is already in the Holy Quran as parables. Go through every part of the Holy Quran where you have the word parable. And well, actually, no, I'll get to that because I have that as an assignment for us. The use of these methods are already found in our history as taught to us by the Most High Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Here's the home study. Here's your assignment, family. And you complete this whenever you decide to complete it. And this is where we end this today. Identify a parable in the Holy Quran. Take whatever parable you want. You have the parable of, it says, from betwixt the feces and the blood, a pure drink agreeable to the drinker. Pick whatever parable you want. Sketch out that parable. Sketch it out on paper or use a demo kit. Grab some paper clips or pieces of glass or whatnot and use a three-dimensional demo kit to illustrate that parable. Identify each element of that parable. Then understand the flow between the elements in that parable. Be able to explain that parable in your own language. And you don't have to worry about it, Sister Peggy. I'm going to post this on the YouTube channel, so you can access this all you want. That's not a problem. And that's the last thing I want to do. I'm going to show you where the YouTube channel is, where all these videos are posted.
Okay.
It's not a problem. Write down the cognition that is given to you through the study of the Holy Quran. So as you go through these parables, I'm a firm believer because I've experienced this. It's like having a direct communication between you and Allah. It's like we're being taught, we're being audited by Allah. Does that make sense? Do the same thing with the parables provided by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Go through some of the lectures. And again, I'm bearing witness to this. There have been times I've heard the minister say something and I took one little sentence and that one little sentence became a whole page of notes that just, it cracked my brain open. And it's just one sentence that he might have said. Okay.
Oh man.
What's wrong? You want me to go back?
I was just gonna take a snapshot. Sorry.
No, I'll go back. I'll go back. Okay.
Okay, shukran.
Very welcome. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Let me go ahead, Sister Sultana. I didn't see none of the chat because I was okay. Okay, Sister Shannon had to go. Okay. Sister Sultana, you are on mute.
I didn't have my hand up, did I?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't mean to.
Okay.
It says raise hand. Mine says raise hand.
Nope, your hand's already raised. I got it. And now your hand's back up again. There's a glitch in the matrix.
Oh, yeah, because my okay.
Okay, it's down now.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Sugar.
Go ahead, Sister Belinda.
Video from Mother Tynetta, was it called The New System of Education Starts with Silence?
I think that is it. Yes, ma'am. Yes, that is it.
All right, I put the link in the chat.
Thank you. Praise be to Allah.
Yeah,
And
shukran.
this is the YouTube channel. Can you see my screen? Everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Supreme Wisdom meets Supreme Technology. These are all of, well, not all of, because currently I have approximately 170 Zoom meetings and there's only approximately 25 on here right now. So I still have a lot of work to do of getting them onto the YouTube channel. This allows an individual to connect the Dianetics to our teachings in the Holy Quran. We have gone as far as looking at the island of Patmos with the doctor, the minister, the nurse, and the cremator. And we use it as a demo kit to understand the aberrated mind, saying that we have a doctor, a nurse, a cremator, and a minister in our own thinking. We've gone through problem number 31 of the lion in the cage who has to turn the keys of the poison rusty locks. And we went into the Holy Quran with that. And we went into the tech of Dianetics, dealing with what's called key-ins and locks. And today's Zoom meeting will be posted, inshallah, within the hour on here. Okay.
Okay.
Everyone got that?
Oh,
Okay.
Okay. If you have any questions, this is my email address. One of the goals of the class is to get us back into our extension courses. If you want information as to how to either begin the process of the extension course for book 1 to become a Gold Seal auditor, or if you started it at one time but you never completed it, we will do everything we can to assist the believers in completing the cycle of action, because we are going to need auditors, especially when the minister departs. We don't want to fall into the same situation with the believers winding up in mental institutions because
Exactly.
they didn't understand or comprehend the minister leaving. Okay, so we want to be prepared to assist our friends and family and the other believers with the tech, and we want to be prepared to keep our own head on straight, because we you know, those of us that have the tech might need some auditing. We don't know. I see Sister Peggy's hand is up, but I see she stepped away for a minute, so we'll wait for her to come back. Does anyone have any final thoughts, questions? Go ahead, Sister Peggy. I see your hand up. Yes, ma'am.
I keep missing the YouTube channel. It's the Supreme Wisdom Technology.
Supreme Wisdom, I'll pull it back up again. Supreme Wisdom meets Supreme Technology. That's it right there. Can you see it?
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
Okay.
And some of these titles are Mistakes Shall Not Exist. There's Poison and Rusty Locks. We go into that. The 3 Barriers to Study. So that's the one we already did in the past. You can review that one. We dealt with the 10% and how they represent the snake. And in Dianetics, it's called the suppressive. We've done some why does the devil keep our people illiterate? Dealing with the reactive mind. So if you're going through the videos and you have any questions, any suggestions, if there's any errors that need to be corrected, please, you know, make a note of those and get those to me. Let me know where you are on the tech, whether it's Dianetics, Handbook for Pre-Clears, whatnot, and we will do everything we can to assist to get us all up to speed and prepared for the work that's in front of us. Go ahead, Sister Sultana.
But sorry, Brother Lukman, so should I do the study tech first and then go into the next level, of which is what?
Well, what have you completed up to this point with regards to?
Nothing. I'm just starting everything now. I mean, this is.
Okay.
I did speak to Cheryl.
Okay, great. And so what'd she say?
Yeah, I spoke to her, so I told her I would get back with her about starting.
Okay.
That process.
Now, some of us have had experiences
deep.
where people have hounded us. Sister Cheryl is not one of those type of people. So you're safe. You're safe.
Okay.
With her. Some people, I don't want to say anything negative, but I don't like speaking on the phone too long with anyone unless we're vibing.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a real short attention span. If I'm on the phone with someone and we're not vibing, I get to the point where I start to get, I don't know, maybe it re-stimulates me or something. I have to get off the phone. I can't do it. Sister Cheryl is not that type of person.
No, I liked her energy. She was fine. She was
Oh,
really,
she's wonderful. She's a wonderful, I've been working with her for over 10 years now.
yes. So inshallah, I'm going to try to see if I can get started with purchasing this weekend, but I probably will start it in June. My schedule frees up.
Okay.
I don't want to start it. I don't want to take it and then not be able to
Mhm.
focus on it.
Well, the study tech, that's a free course. You can probably complete that if you have about 4 to 6 hours to dedicate, you can probably do it in one day. It's not intense. It's
Okay.
a very easy course, but it will provide you with a large amount of dividends with regards to the tech.
Okay. Yes.
And I'll use this one example. Again, I'm not saying this to make myself of nothing, but I'm a bearer witness of the tech. Years ago, I had to take a test for a promotional test for the fire department. By Allah's grace, I used the study tech to take the test, and I scored #1 on the captain's list.
Wow.
Promoted to captain.
Yeah.
I took the assistant chief's test. I used the study tech. Understanding misunderstood words, gradients, and lack of mass, and all that information. I scored #1 on the assistant chief's test, and I'm just waiting to get my promotion now. So I'm just sharing that to say, I bear witness that the tech is no joke. It works. And one of my goals is, because my parents were pro-education, but moms really don't care what you do. She just wants you to stay out of trouble. My dad was very pro-education. And I try to carry on that same mindset. My personal goal in life is to inspire the believers or anyone into the areas of mathematics and science.
Mhm.
That's my purpose. That is my goal. That is what gives me life. When about a week or so ago, I asked Sister Anya a question about an equation, and she riddled off the equation, all the parts of the equation. Do you remember that, Sister Anya? I hope she can hear me. If not, and then Sister Tina, she's gone too. But to hear the believers talk about the mathematics and they just flow with it, that takes my tone level through the roof.
Mhm.
That's my purpose for living.
Mhm.
When we say my prayer, my sacrifice, my life, and my death are all for Allah, are we talking about a mystery God, or are we talking about the Allah that exists in one another?
Right.
So my prayer, my sacrifice, my life, and my death are for the Allah in me and in you. That's the purpose of the work that we're doing.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that being said, I know I'm long-winded, but I love being around.
Brother,
Yes, ma'am.
so I sent my name and my number, all my information to you, my email, Rashida, so somebody can get in touch with me, because I'm like sister, I'm starting. Although I've been with Brother Baptiste for like 2 or 3 years, I did more straight wiring than anything. And I was very successful in it. At least I believe, but I know I got a lot more to learn. So I'm just trying to get started.
Okay, I do see your number. I got 3 numbers that I actually know. I have 5 numbers I got to give to her today. So I'm assuming you're down in the ATL, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I see that number. Okay. I will be forwarding those numbers to her today, and I'm going to assume you should get a call within the next couple of days. If you don't, send me an email and I'll contact her and find out why things aren't moving as fast as they should.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Very welcome. Any final comments before we close out in prayer? And I apologize. I always try to keep this in within an hour and a half to 2 hours, and then I just lose track of time. I didn't mean to go 3 hours, and This is the exception and not the rule, so. All right, we will go ahead and close out in prayer. Sunday, just to give a quick heads up, Sunday, 6:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I haven't thought of a concept yet. There's a couple of ideas germinating in the back of my mind. If you have any ideas of concepts that you would like to see covered, send them to me in an email. I'd be more than happy to use that topic and present it to the class. So with that being said and done, thank you for your patience, your attention, your questions, and let us go ahead and close out in prayer. Attention prayer. I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed Satan. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. Master the day of judgment in which we now live, the alone we serve, and aid do we seek. Please, Allah, guide us on the straight path, the path upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, not the path upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray if they have heard thy teaching. Ameen.
Amen.
Assalamu alaikum, family. Inshallah, we'll see you on Sunday.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you, brother.
Alaikum salam, sir.
Very welcome.
Allah. Shukran.
Walaikum salam.
Assalam.